The DNA test results landed in my inbox at 6:47 a.m., exactly 12 hours after my sister collapsed in the hospital waiting room. 12 hours after the doctors told us she had weeks to live without a kidney transplant. 12 hours later, I volunteered to be tested as her donor. The subject line read, "Your ancestry DNA results are ready." But nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to discover about the girl I'd called my sister for 23 years. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. I'd probably start from the beginning, back when everything in my world still made sense. My name is Sandy Whitmore, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I had the most ordinary family in suburban Denver, Colorado. Mom worked as a school nurse, Dad managed a hardware store, and my younger sister Emma was finishing her senior year of high school. We lived in the same two-story colonial house on Maple Street where I'd grown up, complete with a white picket fence and Mom's prized rose garden. Emma and I couldn't have been more different. Where I was tall and lean with dark brown hair and green eyes, she was petite with blonde curls and the brightest blue eyes you'd ever seen. Growing up, people always commented on how different we looked, but our parents would just laugh it off, saying Emma took after our maternal grandmother while I favored Dad's side. It never seemed strange to me. Families come in all combinations, right? I'd moved back home 6 months earlier after finishing my nursing degree at Colorado State University. The plan was to save money while working at Denver General Hospital and eventually get my own place. Emma was thrilled to have me back, and honestly, so was I. Despite our 4-year age gap, we'd always been close. She was the funny one, the social butterfly who could make friends with a brick wall, while I was the responsible older sister who helped her with homework and drove her to soccer practice. Everything changed on a Tuesday morning in March. I was getting ready for my shift when I heard this horrible thudding sound from upstairs, followed by Mom screaming. I took the stairs 3 at a time and found Emma collapsed on her bathroom floor, her skin gray and clammy, barely conscious. The ambulance ride to St. Joseph Hospital felt like the longest 20 minutes of my life. Emma kept drifting in and out of consciousness, mumbling things that didn't make sense. The paramedics were pumping fluids into her, checking her vitals every few seconds, their faces grim. I held her hand the entire time, telling her she was going to be okay, even though I could see in their eyes that something was seriously wrong. Dr. Richardson, the attending physician in the emergency room, didn't waste time with pleasantries. After running what seemed like every test known to medical science, he delivered the news that shattered our world. Emma's kidneys were failing, rapidly. Her blood work showed severe chronic kidney disease that had somehow gone undetected, now progressing to end-stage renal failure. "How is that even possible?" Dad demanded, his voice cracking. "She's 18 years old, she plays soccer, she's never been sick a day in her life." Dr. Richardson explained that sometimes kidney disease can be silent until it reaches critical stages, especially in young, otherwise healthy individuals. But what he said next made my blood run cold. Emma's condition was genetic, a rare hereditary nephritis that typically ran in families. He recommended immediate genetic counseling and testing for all of us. "The good news," he continued, "is that she's young and otherwise healthy, which makes her an excellent candidate for transplant. We'll start her on dialysis immediately and get her on the transplant list. But given her age and condition, finding a living donor would be ideal. Family members are often the best matches." Without hesitation, I volunteered. "Test me first," I said. "I'm her sister, I'm healthy, and I'm a nurse. I understand the risks." Mom and Dad exchanged a look I couldn't quite read at the time. Mom's face went pale, and she gripped Dad's arms so tightly her knuckles went white. "Sandy, honey," Mom started, her voice shaking, "maybe we should all get tested. There's no need for you to jump in first." "Mom, I'm the obvious choice. I'm young, healthy, and I work in healthcare. I know what I'm getting into." I turned to Dr. Richardson. "When can we start the compatibility testing?" The next few days blurred together in a haze of medical appointments, insurance calls, and sleepless nights. Emma started dialysis immediately, 3 sessions a week that left her exhausted and nauseous. Watching my vibrant, energetic little sister hooked up to that machine, looking so small and fragile, broke something inside me. The transplant coordinator, Sarah Chen, walked me through the entire donor evaluation process. Blood tests, psychological evaluations, medical history reviews. It was extensive. She explained that we'd start with basic blood typing and tissue compatibility, then move on to more detailed testing if I was a potential match. The good news, he continued, is that siblings have a 25% chance of being perfect matches, Sarah explained, as she drew what felt like pints of blood from my arm. Even if you're not perfect, you could still be compatible enough for transplant. I was so focused on the medical aspects that I almost dismissed the Ancestry DNA kit Mom had given me for Christmas, still sitting unopened on my dresser. Emma had been bugging me for weeks to do it with her. She'd already sent hers in and was excited to compare our results. "Come on, Sandy," she'd said just days before she collapsed. "It'll be fun to see our heritage breakdown. Maybe we'll find some distant cousins or something interesting about our family tree." The night before my donor compatibility results were due, Emma was having a particularly rough day after dialysis. She was weak and barely keeping food down, but she still managed to give me that smile that could light up a room. "Did you ever send in that DNA test?" she asked weakly from her hospital bed. "Not yet," I admitted. "I've been a little preoccupied with more important things." "You should do it," she said, squeezing my hand. "When I get better, when you make me better, we can plan a trip to visit wherever our ancestors came from. It'll be our celebration trip." That night, I sat in my childhood bedroom staring at that little DNA kit. Something about Emma's words made me want to do it, to give us both something to look forward to. I swabbed my cheek, sealed the sample in its little tube, and dropped it in the mailbox on my way to work the next morning. The timing was purely coincidental. I sent my DNA sample to the lab the same day the hospital sent my blood work to their genetics department. Both tests were processed simultaneously, both carrying answers that would change everything I thought I knew about my family. Emma's condition continued to deteriorate over the next week. The doctors were talking about moving her higher on the transplant list, but we all knew that waiting for a deceased donor was a gamble we might not win. Every day that passed made me more anxious about my compatibility results. Mom and Dad had both been tested too, but Dad was ruled out immediately due to high blood pressure and a family history of kidney disease on his side. Mom was still waiting for her results, but at 52 with diabetes, she wasn't the ideal candidate even if she was compatible. The pressure was mounting, and I found myself checking my phone obsessively, waiting for Dr. Richardson's call with my test results. Emma needed this transplant soon, and I was determined to be her answer. I never expected that the real answer would come from a completely different test, one that would make me question everything I'd ever believed about my family, my identity, and the girl I'd spent my entire life calling my sister. The call came at 2:15 p.m. on a Thursday while I was restocking medical supplies at Denver General. Dr. Richardson's voice was carefully neutral when he asked me to come in to discuss my test results in person rather than over the phone. "Is that good or bad?" I asked, my heart already sinking. "It's complicated. Can you come in this afternoon? And Sandy, you might want to bring your parents." Complicated. In medical terms, that was never good news. I found Mom and Dad in Emma's hospital room, playing cards with her to pass the time between her afternoon medications. Emma looked better that day. The new anti-nausea medication was helping, and she'd managed to eat actual food for breakfast instead of just picking at it. "Dr. Richardson wants to see all of us," I announced, "about my test results." The card game stopped mid-hand. Emma's face fell. "That doesn't sound good." "Maybe it's just procedure," Dad said, but his voice lacked conviction. We gathered in Dr. Richardson's office an hour later, the same sterile room where we'd first learned about Emma's condition. But this time, there was someone else there, Dr. Patricia Vance from the genetics department, a woman I'd never met before. "Thank you all for coming," Dr. Richardson began, shuffling through a thick file. "Sandy, your blood work shows that you're healthy and would make an excellent kidney donor. Your kidney function is perfect, your overall health is outstanding." I felt a surge of relief. "So I can donate to Emma?" Dr. Richardson exchanged a glance with Dr. Vance. That's where things get complicated. Dr. Vance ran the genetic compatibility testing, and she has some concerns. Dr. Vance leaned forward, her expression serious. Sandy, the genetic markers we look for in kidney donation go beyond basic blood typing. We examine HLA proteins, human leukocyte antigens, which are inherited from parents and help determine tissue compatibility. Okay, I said slowly, not liking where this was heading. The issue is that your HLA markers show some unexpected patterns when compared to Emma's, patterns that are inconsistent with what we'd expect from biological siblings. The room went dead silent. I could hear the ventilation system humming, the distant sound of hospital announcements, but none of us spoke. What exactly are you saying? Dad's voice was barely above a whisper. I'm saying that based on these genetic markers, Sandy and Emma don't appear to be biological siblings. In fact, they don't appear to share any significant genetic relationship at all. The words hit me like a physical blow. That's impossible. We're sisters. We've always been sisters. Dr. Vance's expression was sympathetic but firm. I understand this is shocking. Genetic testing is extremely accurate, and I've run these tests multiple times to be certain. Sandy, you and Emma have completely different genetic profiles, different enough that you couldn't have the same biological parents. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. I looked at Mom and Dad, expecting them to argue, to demand retesting, to insist there had been some mistake. Instead, I saw something that made my stomach drop. Recognition. They weren't surprised. They were terrified, but they weren't surprised. Mom? My voice cracked. Dad? What's going on? Mom's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold them still in her lap. Sandy, honey, we need to talk, but not here, not now. No, I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. Not later, now. What do you know that you're not telling me? Dad cleared his throat, his face gray with stress. There are things about our family that we never thought we'd need to explain, things that happened before you were old enough to understand. What things? My voice was getting louder and I didn't care. What could possibly explain why your daughter isn't genetically related to the rest of us? The silence stretched on until Dr. Richardson intervened. Perhaps we should focus on the immediate medical situation. Sandy, despite not being a biological match for Emma, we can still explore kidney donation. It would require more intensive immunosuppressive therapy for Emma post-transplant, but it's not impossible. Wait, I said, my mind racing. If I'm not related to Emma, what about Mom and Dad? Are they my biological parents? Dr. Vance consulted her notes. We only tested you and Emma for this specific purpose. To determine your relationship to your parents, we'd need additional testing. I felt like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. Everything I thought I knew about my identity, my family, my place in the world was crumbling. But Emma was still lying in that hospital bed, still dying, and that was the only thing that mattered right now. Can we still do the transplant or not? I demanded. It's possible, Dr. Richardson said carefully, but given this new information, I'd recommend we also test your parents as potential donors, and perhaps explore other options while we're processing this information. Other options like what? Well, if Emma was adopted, we might want to try to locate her biological family. Blood relatives would still be the best match for transplant. The word adopted hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. I watched my parents' faces, saw Mom close her eyes, and Dad's jaw tighten. Was Emma adopted? I asked directly. Mom finally spoke, her voice barely audible. It's not that simple, Sandy. Then make it simple. Was my sister adopted or not? No, Dad said firmly. Emma wasn't adopted. Then what the hell is going on? Dr. Vance interrupted gently. Perhaps this conversation would be better continued privately as a family. For now, let's focus on Emma's medical needs. Sandy, if you're still willing to donate, we can move forward with cross-compatibility testing. It will take a few more days to determine if the transplant is viable despite the genetic differences. I nodded numbly. Do whatever tests you need to do. Emma comes first. As we left the genetics office, my phone buzzed with an email notification. In the chaos of the hospital meeting, I'd completely forgotten about the DNA test I'd sent in days earlier. The subject line read, "Your Ancestry DNA results are ready." I almost deleted it without looking. After what I'd just learned, the last thing I wanted was more confusing information about my genetics. But something made me pause. Maybe this test could provide answers that my parents clearly weren't ready to give me. That night, I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot, staring at my phone screen. Emma was sleeping upstairs, exhausted from another day of dialysis. Mom and Dad had gone home, promising we'd talk tomorrow about what the doctors had discovered. But I couldn't wait until tomorrow. I needed answers now. I clicked on the email and logged into the Ancestry DNA website, my hands trembling as I navigated to my results page. The ethnicity breakdown appeared first: Irish, German, and Polish ancestry, which matched what I'd always been told about our family heritage. Nothing shocking there. But then I scrolled down to the DNA matches section, and my world tilted off its axis. At the top of the list, marked as a close family match, likely parent, was a name I'd never heard before: Margaret Eleanor Thompson, located in Portland, Oregon. Below that, two more close matches, labeled as likely half-siblings: Michael James Thompson and Jennifer Marie Thompson, both also in Oregon. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. According to this test, my closest genetic relatives weren't the people who'd raised me, but complete strangers living 800 miles away, people who shared my DNA, people who might have answers about who I really was. The testing had revealed that Emma and I weren't biological sisters, but this went deeper. If these DNA matches were accurate, then the parents who'd raised me weren't my biological parents either. Everything I thought I knew about my identity, my family, my place in the world was crumbling. I called the one number I'd memorized by heart: Emma's hospital room. "Sandy?" Her voice was groggy with sleep medication. "Is everything okay?" "Emma," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I need you to tell me the truth about something. Have Mom and Dad ever said anything to you about our family that seemed strange? About how we came to be sisters?" There was a long pause. "Why are you asking me that?" "Just, please, has there ever been anything that didn't make sense to you?" Another pause, longer this time. "There was something, a few years ago. I found some papers in Mom's jewelry box when I was looking for earrings to borrow. Legal documents with our names on them, but they looked official, like court papers or something. When I asked Mom about them, she got really upset and told me they were old insurance forms, nothing important." "What kind of legal documents?" "I don't know. I was only 15, and I didn't understand most of the legal language. But Sandy, there was something else. The papers had different last names on them, not Whitmore." My blood turned to ice. "What names?" "I can't remember exactly, but I think yours was different from mine. Like we had different last names before we became Whitmores." The pieces were starting to form a picture I didn't want to see. Two children, possibly from different families, somehow ending up with the same adoptive parents. But if that was true, why had they never told us? Why had they raised us believing we were biological sisters? And more importantly, if Emma's biological family was out there somewhere, they could be her salvation, her best chance at finding a compatible kidney donor. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I spent hours staring at the DNA matches on my phone, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Margaret Eleanor Thompson, potential biological mother. Michael and Jennifer Thompson, potential half-siblings. All living in Portland, Oregon, a place I'd never been, among people I'd never heard of. By 3 a.m., I'd made a decision that would have seemed insane just 48 hours earlier. I was going to contact them. I started with Margaret Thompson's profile. Ancestry DNA allowed users to send messages through their platform, and after typing and deleting dozens of drafts, I finally settled on something simple. Hi, Margaret. I received some unexpected DNA results that show we might be related. I'm currently dealing with a family medical emergency and would appreciate the chance to speak with you if you're willing. My name is Sandy Whitmore, I'm 23 years old, and I live in Denver, Colorado. Please contact me if you're open to talking. I hit send before I could second-guess myself, then immediately sent similar messages to Michael and Jennifer Thompson. The wait for responses felt eternal. The next morning, I arrived at the hospital early to find Emma looking worse than she had in days. Her skin had a yellowish tint that made my stomach clench. Her kidney function was declining faster than expected. The doctors want to move up her next dialysis session, Mom said, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. Her blood work from this morning wasn't good. I pulled Mom aside in the hallway. We need to have that conversation now. Emma's running out of time, and if there are biological relatives out there who could help her, we need to find them immediately. Mom's face crumpled. Sandy, you have to understand. We did what we thought was best, for both of you. What exactly did you do? She looked around nervously, making sure we were alone. Emma came to us when she was 3 years old. Her mother was troubled. Drug addiction, abusive relationships. Social services removed Emma from the home after a neighbor called about neglect. So Emma was adopted through the system? Not exactly. Mom's voice dropped to almost a whisper. Her mother was my cousin Rebecca Martinez. She was family, but she couldn't take care of Emma. When social services got involved, they asked if we could take Emma temporarily while Rebecca got help. I felt a chill run down my spine. But it wasn't temporary. Rebecca died 6 months later, overdose. By then, Emma was settled with us, happy, calling us mom and dad. The social worker said it would be traumatic to move her again, especially since she was family. We agreed to make it permanent. What about Emma's father? Rebecca never told anyone who he was. It could have been one of several men, and none of them were in the picture anyway. This explained Emma, but not me. What about my situation? Am I adopted too? Mom's silence was enough. Mom, Emma could die. I need to know the truth about both of us right now. She took a shaky breath. You came to us differently. You were 2 years old when your biological mother left you with us. She said she'd be back in a few weeks, that she just needed to get on her feet financially. She never came back. Who was she? Her name was Linda Thompson. She was a friend of mine from high school who'd fallen on hard times. She had nowhere else to turn. Thompson? The same last name as my DNA matches in Oregon. Did you ever try to find her, to make it official? We tried for months. We hired a private investigator, contacted family members, filed missing persons reports. Linda had vanished completely. After 2 years of searching with no leads, we went through the courts to gain legal custody of you. By then, you and Emma were like biological sisters. It seemed cruel to tell you that you weren't really family. I leaned against the hospital wall, processing this information. So, Linda Thompson might be related to the people who showed up on my DNA test? It's possible. Linda mentioned having family in Oregon, but she was estranged from them. She never gave us details. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a notification, a message through Ancestry DNA. Sandy, I can't believe I'm seeing your message. I've been searching for my daughter Linda's child for over 20 years. Are you Linda's daughter? Please call me immediately. Margaret Thompson. Below the message was a phone number with a Portland area code. My hands were shaking as I showed the message to Mom. Her face went white. That's her, Mom whispered. Margaret was Linda's mother. Linda mentioned her a few times, saying they'd had a falling out years before you were born. She's been looking for me for 20 years? Apparently so. I looked through the hospital window at Emma, who was trying to sip some broth while Dad read to her from a magazine. Time was running out for her, and I might have just found the key to saving her life, but it meant upending everything I thought I knew about my own. I dialed Margaret Thompson's number. She answered on the first ring. Sandy? Yes, this is Sandy. Oh my God, her voice broke immediately. I can't believe this is real. Are you really Linda's daughter? I think so. The people who raised me said my biological mother's name was Linda Thompson, and she left me with them when I was 2 years old. That's her. That's my Linda. She was crying now. Sandy, I've been searching for you since you were 5 years old. It took us 3 years to even find out what state you were in. You were looking for me? Of course we were looking for you. You're our family. Linda brought you to Colorado when she was running from your father. He was violent, dangerous. She called me once to tell me she'd found a safe place for you with good people, but she was afraid to tell me where, in case he came looking. That was the last time I ever spoke to my daughter. What happened to Linda? Margaret's voice became very quiet. She died in a car accident in New Mexico 7 years ago. We found out through the police. She'd been living under a false name, trying to stay hidden from your father. By the time we learned what happened, the trail to find you had gone completely cold. The weight of this revelation hit me hard. My biological mother had spent years trying to protect me from a dangerous father and had died believing I was safe. Meanwhile, her family had been searching for me, not knowing if I was alive or dead. Sandy, I need you to know that you have a family here who loves you. Michael and Jennifer have grown up knowing they had a sister out there somewhere. We never gave up hope of finding you. I wiped tears from my eyes. Margaret, I need to ask you something important. Do you know anything about Emma Martinez? She would be about 18 years old, and she's the girl I grew up thinking was my sister. Emma Martinez? No, that name doesn't mean anything to me. Why? I explained Emma's situation, the kidney failure, the urgent need for a transplant, the discovery that we weren't biological siblings. I was hoping maybe there was some connection, some chance that you might know her biological family too. I'm so sorry, honey. I don't know anyone by that name. But Sandy, you need to come to Portland. You need to meet your real family. Michael and Jennifer are both healthy adults. Maybe one of them could be tested as a donor for Emma. That's not how it works. We'd need to find Emma's biological family for the best chance of compatibility.
Then we'll help you find them. My son Michael works in investigative research. He's the one who's been helping me search for you all these years. If anyone can track down Emma's biological relatives, it's him. For the first time in days, I felt a spark of hope. You'd really help us? Sandy, you're my granddaughter. Emma is the sister who raised you. Of course we'll help. Can you come to Portland, or do you want us to come to Colorado? I looked back through the window at Emma, who was now sleeping fitfully, her breathing labored even in rest. I can't leave her right now, she's too sick. Then we're coming to you. Michael, Jennifer, and I will be on the next flight to Denver. We'll bring every resource we have to help find Emma's family. After hanging up, I sat in the hospital corridor trying to process everything that had just happened. In the span of 24 hours, I'd discovered that my entire identity was built on secrets and half-truths. The parents who raised me weren't my biological parents. The sister I'd grown up with wasn't my biological sister. But the biological family I never knew existed was dropping everything to help save the life of a girl they'd never met, simply because she mattered to me. I went back into Emma's room and took her hand. She opened her eyes slowly. "Hey," she whispered, "you look like you've seen a ghost." "Em, I found some people who might be able to help us. They're coming here to Denver." "Donors?" "Maybe, but definitely people who know how to find missing family members. We're going to track down your biological relatives." Emma squeezed my hand weakly. "Sandy, no matter what we find out about our families, you know you'll always be my sister, right?" I squeezed back, fighting tears. "Always. And I'm going to make sure you live long enough for us to figure out this whole mess together." What I didn't tell her was that my new family was already on their way to Colorado, and that tomorrow would bring revelations that would change both of our lives forever. Margaret Thompson arrived at Denver International Airport with an energy that reminded me instantly of myself. She was tall and lean, with graying brown hair and the same green eyes I saw in the mirror every morning. Behind her walked two people who could only be Michael and Jennifer, my half-siblings I'd never known existed. Michael was in his early 30s, carrying a laptop bag and what looked like several thick folders. He had the focused, analytical look of someone who solved puzzles for a living. Jennifer appeared to be closer to my age, with blonde hair and a warm smile that immediately put me at ease despite the surreal circumstances. "Sandy?" Margaret's voice cracked as she approached me in the arrivals area. "Yes, it's me." She wrapped me in a hug that felt like coming home and meeting a stranger simultaneously. 23 years of separation condensed into a single moment that somehow felt both foreign and familiar. "You look exactly like Linda did at your age," she whispered, pulling back to study my face. "Same eyes, same stubborn chin." Michael stepped forward, extending his hand with a slight smile. "I can't believe we're actually meeting. I've been tracking digital breadcrumbs trying to find you for over a decade." Jennifer was more direct, pulling me into another hug. "We have so much to catch up on, but first, tell us about Emma." Michael brought everything he could think of to help track down her family. We drove straight from the airport to St. Joseph Hospital. I'd warned Emma that some unexpected relatives were coming to help, but I could see the shock on her face when three strangers walked into her room carrying research materials and laptops like they were setting up a mobile command center. "Emma," I said, taking her hand, "this is Margaret, Michael, and Jennifer. They're my biological family from Oregon, and they're here to help us find your biological relatives." Emma's eyes widened. "Your biological family? Sandy, what's happening?" Margaret sat down beside Emma's bed with the gentle authority of someone who'd clearly dealt with medical crises before. "Emma, honey, I know this is overwhelming, but we've become very good at finding people over the years, and we're going to use every resource we have to track down your birth family." Michael was already unpacking his laptop. Sandy filled us in on the basics during the drive. Emma Martinez, approximately 18 years old, placed in foster care at age 3, biological mother named Rebecca Martinez, who died of an overdose, father unknown. Is that accurate? Emma nodded weakly. "Good, that's more than I usually have to work with." Michael's fingers were flying across his keyboard. "I've already started preliminary searches on the plane. Rebecca Martinez, Colorado, died approximately 15 years ago. I found 3 potential matches in the obituary databases." Jennifer pulled out a legal pad covered in notes. "We also need to consider that Martinez might have been a married name, or that Rebecca might have had other children before Emma. Half-siblings would still be potential donors." Over the next hour, I watched my newly discovered family work with a precision that was both impressive and slightly overwhelming. Michael had access to databases I'd never heard of: property records, court filings, school enrollment data, even social media archives. Jennifer seemed to specialize in connecting seemingly unrelated pieces of information, while Margaret coordinated their efforts with the efficiency of a seasoned project manager. "Found her," Michael announced suddenly. "Rebecca Elena Martinez, died October 15, 2009 in Colorado Springs. Survived by her mother, Carmen Martinez, and 2 sisters, Maria Santos and Patricia Hernandez." Emma sat up straighter in her hospital bed. "I have aunts? And a grandmother?" "Potentially, yes. But here's where it gets interesting." Michael turned his laptop screen toward us. "Carmen Martinez is listed in the obituary as living in Pueblo, Colorado, but when I cross-referenced current addresses, she's now in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Maria Santos appears to be in Denver, actually just 20 minutes from this hospital." 20 minutes? Emma's voice was barely a whisper. Jennifer was already pulling up more information. "Maria Santos, formerly Martinez, age 45, works as a school administrator in the Denver public school system. Married to Carlos Santos, 3 children, Rosa, Diego, and Ana Santos." "Emma has 3 cousins living 20 minutes away," I said, the reality of it hitting me hard.
Margaret looked directly at Emma. Honey, would you like us to try to contact them? What if they don't want to meet me? What if they don't want to help? Then we keep looking, Michael said simply. But Emma, in my experience, most people want to help their family, especially in medical emergencies. The hardest part is usually just finding them. Dr. Richardson chose that moment to walk into the room for Emma's afternoon checkup. He stopped short at seeing our impromptu family reunion and research operation. I see we have some visitors, he said carefully. Dr. Richardson, this is my biological family from Oregon, I explained. They're helping us track down Emma's biological relatives for potential kidney donors. His eyebrows rose. That was fast work. Michael stood up, extending his hand. Dr. Richardson, I'm Michael Thompson. I work in investigative research, and we've located several potential biological relatives for Emma in the Denver area. Would it be possible to discuss the process for getting them tested as potential donors? If they're legitimate biological relatives and willing to be tested, absolutely. What kind of relationships are we talking about? Potentially a grandmother, 2 aunts, and 3 cousins, Jennifer replied, consulting her notes. Dr. Richardson's expression grew more interesting. That's an excellent pool of potential matches. The closer the relationship, the better the chances of compatibility. If you can make contact and they're willing to be tested, I can have our transplant coordinator reach out to them immediately. After Dr. Richardson left, Margaret turned to Emma. Emma, this is your decision. We can try to contact Maria Santos today, or we can do more research first, try to find out more about the family situation before reaching out. Emma was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. What if they blame me for Rebecca's death? What if they think she died because of me? Emma, I said firmly, you were 3 years old. You weren't responsible for anything that happened. But what if they see it that way? Jennifer sat down on the other side of Emma's bed. Emma, I work with families in crisis situations professionally. I'm a social worker in Portland. In my experience, families who've lost someone often feel guilty about not doing enough to help. They might see meeting you as a chance to do something meaningful in Rebecca's memory. Michael looked up from his laptop. There's something else. I found Rebecca's social media profiles from before she died. She posted pictures of you, Emma. Pictures of a little girl with blonde curls, captions about how much she loved her daughter, even though she couldn't take care of you properly. This family knew you existed, and they knew Rebecca loved you. Emma started crying then, not the weak tears of someone who was sick and scared, but deep, cathartic sobs of someone who just learned that her biological mother had loved her. She posted pictures of me, multiple pictures. And Emma, in her final post, just 2 weeks before she died, wrote about how she hoped someday you'd understand that giving you up was the hardest thing she'd ever done, but that she wanted you to have a better life than she could provide. I held Emma while she cried, feeling my own tears starting. Whatever complicated emotions I was dealing with regarding my own identity, this moment wasn't about me. This was about Emma learning that she'd been loved and missed by people she'd never known existed. I want to meet them, Emma said finally. I want to call Maria Santos. Margaret nodded. We'll make the call together, all of us. Michael had already found a current phone number. It's 4:30 p.m. on a Friday. If she works in school administration, she might be getting ready to leave work. This might actually be perfect timing. Emma looked at me. Sandy, will you dial the number? I don't think I can do it. I took the phone, my hands surprisingly steady. This call could change everything, for Emma's health, for her sense of identity, for both of our futures. But as I dialed Maria Santos's number, I realized that sometimes the scariest moments are also the most hopeful ones. The phone rang once, twice. On the third ring, a woman's voice answered. Hello? Is this Maria Santos? Yes, who is this? I took a deep breath. My name is Sandy Whitmore, and I'm calling about your niece, Emma Martinez, Rebecca's daughter. The silence on the other end of the phone stretched for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. Emma? Maria's voice was barely a whisper. Rebecca's Emma? Yes. She's here with me, and she's very sick. We need your help. Oh my God! Oh my God, is this real? We've been wondering about her for 15 years. Where is she? Is she okay? What do you mean she's sick? I could hear commotion in the background, chairs scraping, voices asking questions. Maria, I know this is a shock. Emma is in the hospital with kidney failure. She needs a transplant, and we're hoping that biological family members might be compatible donors. Kidney failure? How old is she now? 18. Jesus, she's 18. Maria's voice cracked. Where are you? Which hospital? St. Joseph Hospital in Denver, room 314. I'm coming right now. Don't go anywhere. Don't let her go anywhere. The line went dead. Emma stared at me with wide eyes. She's coming? She's coming. Margaret squeezed Emma's shoulder. That went better than we could have hoped for. Michael was back on his laptop. I'm documenting everything for the doctors, family names, relationships, contact information. When Maria gets here, we'll have all the medical compatibility information ready to share with her. What if she's not a match? Emma asked quietly. Jennifer looked up from her legal pad where she'd been taking notes. Emma, Maria has 3 children and a mother who are all still alive. That's 5 potential donors just from this one phone call. The odds are very good that someone in your family will be compatible. Over the next 30 minutes, Emma alternated between excitement and terror. She kept asking me to fix her hair, worried about how she looked, wondering what she should say to an aunt she'd never met. I tried to reassure her while dealing with my own emotional whirlwind about meeting my half-siblings and grandmother for the first time. When Maria Santos appeared in the doorway of Emma's hospital room, there was no question she was family. She had the same blonde curls as Emma, the same bright blue eyes, and the same petite frame. Behind her stood a tall man who had to be her husband Carlos, and 3 teenagers who were clearly Emma's cousins. Maria stopped just inside the doorway, tears streaming down her face. You look exactly like Rebecca when she was your age. Emma started crying too. I don't remember her very well. She was beautiful and funny and so troubled, Maria said, approaching Emma's bed slowly, like she was afraid Emma might disappear. Can I hug you? Oh, mija, of course you can. The reunion between Emma and her aunt was everything I'd hoped it would be. Tears, laughter, immediate connection despite 15 years of separation. Carlos and the 3 Santos children hung back initially, but within minutes they were all gathered around Emma's bed, sharing stories and asking questions. This is Rosa, she's 17, Maria said, indicating a girl who looked remarkably like Emma. Diego is 15 and Ana is 13. I have cousins, Emma kept repeating, like she couldn't quite believe it. Rosa sat down beside Emma's bed. We always wondered what happened to you. Mama has pictures of you when you were little that Tia Rebecca sent her. You have pictures of me? Tons of them. Mama never threw anything away that came from Tia Rebecca. Dr. Richardson appeared in the doorway, looking slightly overwhelmed by the crowd that had gathered in Emma's room. I heard we have some potential donors here. Maria stood up immediately. Doctor, I'm Maria Santos, Emma's aunt. We're all willing to be tested. Me, my husband, our 3 children, and my mother Carmen is driving up from Albuquerque tonight. That's wonderful news. I'll have our transplant coordinator come up to discuss the testing process with all of you. Michael stepped forward. Dr. Richardson, I've prepared a family medical history based on my research, if that would be helpful. Extremely helpful. The more information we have, the better we can assess compatibility. Over the next hour, Sarah Chen, the transplant coordinator, explained the donation process to Emma's newly discovered family. Everyone volunteered immediately, even 13-year-old Ana, though Sarah explained she was too young to donate. The good news is that with this many potential donors, our chances of finding a compatible match are excellent, Sarah said. We'll start with blood typing and HLA testing for everyone. Results should be back within 24 to 48 hours. What are the chances that one of them will be a match? I asked. With 5 potential donors, including 1 parent generation relative, I'd say we have at least a 70% chance of finding someone compatible, possibly higher. For the first time in weeks, I felt like Emma might actually survive this. Carmen Martinez arrived from Albuquerque at nearly midnight, a tiny woman in her 70s with steel gray hair and Emma's same determined chin. She walked straight to Emma's bedside and took her face in her hands. Mija, you have your mother's eyes and your grandfather's stubborn streak. I can see it already. You're my grandmother? I'm your abuela, and I've been praying to meet you for 15 years. Carmen had brought something with her, a photo album filled with pictures of Rebecca, including dozens of photos of Emma as a toddler that Rebecca had sent to the family before her death. Rebecca was sick, Mija, but she never stopped loving you, Carmen said, turning pages slowly. She sent me these pictures with letters about how smart you were, how much you loved books and singing. She said giving you up was killing her, but she knew it was right. Emma traced her finger over a photo of herself at maybe 2 years old, sitting on Rebecca's lap, both of them laughing at something off camera. I wish I remembered her better. She's right here, Carmen said, pointing to Emma's smile in the photo. Every time you laugh, every time you're stubborn, every time you're brave, that's Rebecca. She's part of you, Mija. The next morning, the entire Santos family showed up for blood testing. I watched from the hallway as they filled out medical forms, answered questions about family health history, and submitted to what seemed like pints of blood being drawn for testing. Margaret found me in the hallway during the testing process. How are you holding up with all of this? Honestly, I'm overwhelmed. A week ago, I thought I knew exactly who I was and where I came from. Now I find out my entire identity was built on well-meaning lies, and I have a whole family I never knew existed. Are you angry with the people who raised you? I considered the question. No, I don't think so. They did what they thought was best. But I feel like I've been living someone else's life. Sandy, the life you lived was your life. The love you felt for Emma, the person you became, the choices you made, none of that changes because your DNA came from different people. But what about you? What about Linda? I missed 23 years with my real family. Margaret put her arm around me. We missed those years too, but we found each other now when it matters most. And look what you've accomplished. You became a nurse, you're trying to save Emma's life, you've built meaningful relationships. Linda would be so proud of who you turned out to be. Sarah Chen emerged from the testing area with a smile on her face. We'll have preliminary blood typing results this afternoon and full compatibility testing by tomorrow morning. But I can tell you that 3 of the 5 potential donors have the same blood type as Emma, which is a very promising start. 3 matches? Emma called out from her bed, where she'd been listening to our conversation. Blood type matches, which is the first hurdle. We still need to test for tissue compatibility, but this is excellent news. That afternoon, Margaret, Michael, and Jennifer helped me pack a bag to stay at the hospital overnight. Emma was having another rough day with her kidney function, and I didn't want to leave her side. What happens after all this? I asked Margaret as we sat in the hospital cafeteria. I mean, if Emma gets her transplant and recovers, what happens to us, to our family? What do you want to happen? I don't know. I love the parents who raised me, but I also want to know you, Michael and Jennifer. I want to learn about Linda, about where I came from, but I also don't want to abandon the life I've built here. Sandy, we're not asking you to choose. We're just asking you to let us be part of your life going forward. We've missed 23 years. We don't want to miss any more. That night, as I sat beside Emma's bed watching her sleep, I realized that the DNA test results that had arrived just 4 days earlier hadn't just given me information about my genetics. They'd given Emma a fighting chance at survival, reconnected me with a family I never knew existed, and opened up possibilities for the future that I couldn't have imagined a week ago. But the most important test results were still coming, the ones that would determine whether Emma would live or die. The call came at 7:23 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. I was dozing in the chair beside Emma's bed when Sarah Chen's voice over the intercom jolted me awake. Sandy, can you come to the nurse's station? Dr. Richardson needs to speak with you and Emma's family immediately. Emma's eyes fluttered open. Is that about the test results? I think so. My heart was pounding as I helped her sit up straighter in bed. Within minutes, Emma's hospital room was packed again. Maria and Carlos had arrived with Rosa and Diego. Carmen was there with Patricia, Emma's other aunt who'd driven up from Colorado Springs overnight. Margaret, Michael, and Jennifer flanked my side of the room. Mom and Dad Whitmore stood near the door, looking slightly out of place among all these newly discovered relatives, but determined to be there for both Emma and me. Dr. Richardson entered carrying a thick folder, followed by Sarah Chen and another doctor I didn't recognize. "This is Dr. Patricia Ewan, head of our transplant surgery department," Dr. Richardson announced. "She'll be handling Emma's case if we move forward with surgery." If we move forward. The word sent a chill through me. Dr. Ewan stepped forward with the confident bearing of someone who delivered life-changing news regularly. "Emma, we have your compatibility test results. The good news is that we found not just one, but 2 excellent potential donors in your family." The room erupted in whispers and gasps, but Dr. Ewan held up her hand for quiet. "Maria, you are a near-perfect match for Emma. Your HLA typing shows compatibility that would give us an excellent chance of transplant success with minimal risk of rejection." Maria burst into tears, Carlos wrapping his arms around her shoulders. "I do it? I can give her my kidney?" "Absolutely. In fact, your compatibility scores are some of the best I've seen in 15 years of transplant surgery." "You said there were 2 matches?" Carmen asked, gripping Patricia's hand. "Rosa, you're also compatible, though not quite as close a match as your mother. However, you're both excellent candidates." Rosa stood up immediately. "I want to do it. I want to give Emma my kidney." "Rosa, mija," Maria said through her tears, "you're 17. You have your whole life ahead of you. And Emma's 18 with her whole life ahead of her too. She's my cousin. She's family." Dr. Ewan intervened gently. "This is exactly the kind of decision that requires careful consideration from everyone involved. Both Maria and Rosa would need extensive medical evaluations, psychological counseling, and time to fully understand the implications of donation." "How long does all of that take?" Emma asked, her voice shaky. "Typically 4 to 6 weeks for a living donor evaluation." 4 to 6 weeks? I stood up sharply. Emma doesn't have 4 to 6 weeks. Her kidney function is declining daily. Dr. Richardson consulted his charts. Emma's current kidney function is at about 8% and dropping. We can keep her on dialysis, but you're right that time is a critical factor. "Then let's fast-track everything," Maria said firmly. "Whatever tests, whatever evaluations, whatever paperwork, let's do it all immediately." Dr. Ewan nodded. "We can accelerate the process given Emma's condition. I can have Maria in for comprehensive medical testing this afternoon, psychological evaluation tomorrow morning, and surgical consultation by Thursday. If everything looks good, we could potentially schedule surgery for early next week." "Next week?" Emma's face lit up for the first time in weeks. "Pending all the evaluations, yes. Maria, are you absolutely certain you want to move forward with donation?" Maria walked over to Emma's bedside and took her hands. "Mija, 15 years ago, I failed your mother. I knew she was struggling, I knew she needed help, but I was so busy with my own life that I didn't do enough to save her. I'm not going to fail you." "Tia Maria, you didn't fail anyone." "Maybe not, but I'm not taking any chances this time. You're getting my kidney, and that's final." Rosa looked disappointed, but nodded in understanding. "If something happens and Mama can't donate for some reason, I'm back up, right?" "Absolutely," Dr. Ewan confirmed. "We'll evaluate you both simultaneously so we have options if needed." The next 3 days passed in a blur of medical appointments, insurance paperwork, and family dynamics I was still learning to navigate. Maria sailed through every test. Her kidney function was excellent, her overall health perfect, and the psychological evaluation confirmed what we all already knew. She was absolutely committed to helping Emma. Michael had been quietly working on something during all the medical preparations. On Thursday evening, he approached Emma with another thick folder. "Emma, I've been researching more about your mother's life before she died. I found some things I thought you might want to see." He opened the folder to reveal printouts of newspaper articles, school records, and what looked like court documents. Rebecca was valedictorian of her high school class. She had a full scholarship to the University of Colorado to study elementary education. Emma's eyes widened. She was going to be a teacher? She was a teacher, briefly. She taught 3rd grade for 2 years before you were born. According to these records, she was beloved by her students and their parents. What happened? Michael's expression grew sad. "Your father happened. Rebecca met him when you were about 1 year old. According to police records, he was abusive and controlling. The school had to let Rebecca go when she started missing work due to injuries. She lost her job because of him? She lost everything because of him. But Emma, look at this. Michael pulled out a letter, handwritten on sign stick. This is a letter Rebecca wrote to your abuela Carmen just 2 months before she died. She never sent it. I found it in her personal effects that were stored with the county.
Emma took the letter with trembling hands. Can you read it to me? I don't think I can. Michael cleared his throat. Dear Mama, I know you're angry with me for the choices I've made, and you have every right to be, but I need you to know that Emma is safe and loved. The family I placed her with are good people, a nurse and a business owner who can give her everything I can't. I see her sometimes, from a distance. She's growing up, smart and happy and beautiful. She doesn't remember me, which is probably for the best. I was never the mother she deserved, but I loved her enough to give her better parents than me. If something happens to me, please don't blame yourself. You tried to help me, but I was too broken to be fixed. Just know that my last good decision was making sure Emma had a real family. Te amo, Rebecca. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Emma was sobbing, but for the first time since I'd known her, they seemed like healing tears rather than tears of pain or fear. She was watching me, Emma whispered. She knew I was okay. Carmen reached over and stroked Emma's hair. She knew you were loved, mija. That's all any mother wants for her child. Friday morning brought the final pre-surgical consultations. Dr. Ewan reviewed all of Maria's test results with both her and Emma, explaining the surgery process, recovery timeline, and long-term implications for both of them. Maria, after donation, you'll live a completely normal life with one healthy kidney. Your remaining kidney will adapt to handle the full workload, which typically happens within weeks of surgery. And Emma? With Maria's kidney, Emma should have completely normal kidney function within a month of transplant. She'll need to take anti-rejection medications for life, but she should be able to live normally. College, career, family, everything. Emma looked at me with tears in her eyes. Sandy, I'm going to live a normal life. You're going to live an extraordinary life, I corrected her. Dr. Ewan scheduled the transplant surgery for Monday morning, giving Maria one final weekend to prepare and Emma a few more days to stabilize on dialysis. That Friday evening, both of our families, biological and adoptive, gathered in Emma's hospital room for what felt like the most surreal dinner party of my life. Margaret and Jennifer had brought Chinese takeout, Carmen had made homemade tamales, and Mom Whitmore contributed her famous chocolate chip cookies. So, Dad Whitmore said to Margaret during a lull in conversation, I guess we're going to be sharing Sandy now. Margaret smiled warmly. We're all just grateful she turned out so well. You and your wife did an amazing job raising her. We love both these girls like they're our own, Mom Whitmore said, her voice emotional. Biology doesn't change that. No, Carmen agreed, looking around the room at this impossible mix of people who'd become family through crisis and love rather than just genetics. Family is what you make it. As the evening wound down, Emma pulled me aside. Sandy, I need to tell you something. What? After I recover from surgery, I want to apply to college to study elementary education. Like Rebecca, like my mother, I want to finish what she started. Looking around that hospital room at all the people who'd moved mountains to save Emma's life, I realized that sometimes the most important family connections aren't the ones you're born with. They're the ones you choose to fight for. Monday morning arrived gray and cold, but inside St. Joseph Hospital, there was an energy of hope I hadn't felt in weeks. Emma's transplant surgery was scheduled for 8 a.m., with Maria's kidney removal happening simultaneously in the adjacent operating room. I'd barely slept the night before, alternating between excitement that Emma would finally get her chance at a normal life and terror that something could go wrong during surgery. Maria had stayed surprisingly calm, spending Sunday evening writing letters to her 3 children and making Carlos promise to take care of himself while she recovered. You know this is routine surgery, right? Dr. Ewan had assured us during the preoperative briefing. We perform kidney transplants twice a week here. The success rate for living donor transplants is over 95%.
But statistics don't calm your nerves when someone you love is being wheeled into surgery. At 7:30 a.m., our extended family gathered in the surgical waiting area. The Whitmore parents, the Thompson family from Oregon, the entire Santos Martinez clan, plus what seemed like half the nursing staff from Denver General who'd come to support me during their off hours. The waiting room looked like a United Nations convention with all the different families represented. Emma was wheeled past us first, already groggy from pre-medication, but still alert enough to wave weakly at everyone. "See you on the other side," she called out, managing a smile despite the circumstances. 20 minutes later, Maria was wheeled past, giving Emma's assembled family a thumbs up as she disappeared behind the surgical doors. And then we waited. The first 2 hours dragged by with periodic updates from the surgical nurses. Both patients are doing well, surgery proceeding as expected. Jennifer had brought a deck of cards, Carmen was working on a crossword puzzle, and Michael was researching post-transplant care protocols on his laptop because that's apparently what he did when he was nervous. At 10:45 a.m., Dr. Ewan emerged from the surgical suite still wearing her scrubs, a tired, satisfied smile on her face. "Both surgeries were completely successful," she announced. "Maria's kidney was harvested without complications, and the transplant into Emma went perfectly. The kidney began producing urine immediately, which is exactly what we want to see." The waiting room erupted in cheers, tears, and hugs. Carmen actually kissed Dr. Ewan on both cheeks, which made the surgeon laugh. "When can we see them?" Rosa asked. "Maria will be in recovery for another hour, and Emma will need about 2 hours before she's alert enough for visitors, but I can tell you that both of them are going to be just fine." The relief was overwhelming. After weeks of watching Emma get sicker and weaker, after all the family revelations and medical uncertainty, it was finally over. Emma was going to live. I called in sick to work for the rest of the week, spending every possible moment at the hospital watching Emma recover. The change was remarkable. Within 24 hours, her skin color had returned to normal, her energy was improving, and she was actually hungry for the first time in weeks. Maria recovered quickly too, joking that giving birth to 3 children had been much more difficult than giving up a kidney. By Wednesday, she was walking the halls and demanding to know when she could go home to her own bed. "The kidney function looks perfect," Dr. Richardson reported during Thursday morning rounds. "Emma's creatinine levels are better than they've been in months. Maria, your remaining kidney is adapting beautifully. I'd say this transplant is a complete success." Emma grabbed my hand. "Sandy, I'm really going to be okay." "You're going to be better than okay. You're going to be amazing." The following Saturday, both Emma and Maria were discharged from the hospital. Emma would need frequent follow-up appointments and would be on immunosuppressive medications for life, but she was essentially cured. We decided to celebrate with a family dinner at Mom and Dad Whitmore's house, the first time everyone would be together outside of a hospital setting. Margaret, Michael, and Jennifer had extended their stay in Denver for another week to make sure everyone was recovering well before flying back to Oregon. Sitting around our dining room table, looking at this impossible mix of people who'd become family through DNA tests, medical emergencies, and sheer determination to save Emma's life, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: complete peace with who I was and where I belonged. "I want to make a toast," Emma said, raising her glass of water. Alcohol was off limits with her new medications. "To families. The ones we're born into, the ones we're adopted into, and the ones we choose to fight for." "Two families," everyone echoed. After dinner, Margaret pulled me aside for a private conversation in the backyard. "Sandy, I know this has been overwhelming for you, finding out about your biological family while dealing with Emma's crisis. I want you to know that we don't expect anything from you except what you're willing to give." "What do you mean?" "I mean that you have a life here, people who love you, a career you're building. We don't want to disrupt that, but we'd love to be part of it if you'll have us." I thought about everything that had happened over the past month. Margaret, I spent my whole life wondering why I felt different from my parents, why I never quite felt like I fit perfectly in my family. It wasn't because the Whitmores weren't good parents. They were amazing. It's because I was missing pieces of myself that I didn't even know existed. And now? Now I feel complete. I have the family who raised me and loved me, And I have the family who gave me life and never stopped looking for me. Emma and I aren't biological sisters, but we're something better. We're chosen sisters. And you and Michael and Jennifer aren't just DNA matches. You're people I want to know and love for the rest of my life. So what happens next? I was thinking about taking some vacation time to visit Oregon, maybe spend a few weeks getting to know my half-siblings and learning about Linda. And maybe you could visit Denver more often so Emma can get to know her chosen grandmother. Margaret smiled. I would love that. 3 months later, Emma started her first semester at the University of Colorado, majoring in elementary education. She was still taking anti-rejection medications and would need regular medical monitoring for life, but her kidney function remained perfect. She'd gained 20 pounds, her hair had grown back thick and shiny, and she looked like a completely different person than the sick girl who'd collapsed in her bathroom that March morning. I split my time between Denver and Portland, building relationships with my biological family while maintaining the bonds with my adoptive family. It wasn't always easy navigating the complicated dynamics, but it was worth it. Michael helped me research more about Linda's life, and I learned that my biological mother had been a talented artist who dreamed of illustrating children's books before addiction and an abusive relationship derailed her life. I inherited her artistic abilities, along with her green eyes, something I never knew about myself until I started sketching again. Jennifer and I discovered we both loved hiking and photography, and we planned a camping trip to Yellowstone for the summer. Margaret became the grandmother Emma had never had, sending care packages during her first semester of college and calling twice a week to check on both of us. The Whitmores embraced my extended family with typical grace, hosting holidays that included everyone and treating Margaret, Michael, and Jennifer like relatives they'd always known. One evening in December, almost a year after Emma's transplant, I found myself back in Emma's hospital room, but this time as a nurse on duty, not a terrified family member. She was there for her routine annual follow-up, getting comprehensive testing to make sure the transplant was still functioning perfectly. All your numbers look fantastic, I told her, reviewing her lab results. Maria's kidney is working like it was made for you. It kinda was, Emma said, grinning. Family kidneys are the best kidneys. How's student teaching going? I love it. The kids are amazing, and I think I'm actually good at it. I feel like I'm doing something Rebecca would be proud of. I sat down beside her bed, in the same chair where I'd spent so many terrifying nights watching her fight for her life. Em, do you ever think about how different our lives would be if I hadn't sent in that DNA test? Every day. If you hadn't done the test, we never would have found Maria and Carmen and Rosa. I'd probably be dead. But we also would never have found out that we're not biological sisters. Emma was quiet for a moment. Sandy, finding out we're not blood relatives was the best thing that ever happened to us. How do you figure that? Because it proved that the bond between us has nothing to do with DNA. We chose each other. We fought for each other. We saved each other's lives. That's not biology. That's love. She was right. The DNA test that had shattered everything I thought I knew about my identity had ultimately shown me that family isn't about genetics. It's about the people who show up when you need them most. As I walked out of St. Joseph Hospital that night, I thought about the chain of events that had led us here. A routine ancestry test, ordered on a whim, had connected me with my biological family, saved Emma's life, and taught both of us that the most important relationships aren't the ones you're born with. They're the ones you choose to nurture and fight for. Sometimes the most unexpected discoveries lead to the most extraordinary outcomes, and sometimes the best families are the ones you build yourself. One DNA test, one kidney transplant, and one chosen bond at a time. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.